Mr. Chair, you are now live streamed.
Thank you. This March 20th meeting of the Otonabee Region Conservation Authority is being held. I'll call the meeting to order at 4:33 p.m. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. I get an approval of this evening's agenda. The mover, Director Huntley, Director Vasiliadis. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Agenda item A3. Do we have any disclosure of conflict of interest? Seeing none, if anything does arise, please notify the chair. We have no delegations for this evening's meeting. And that brings us to item A5, our 2025-012 minutes of the meeting held February 20th, 2025. I don't believe there's any business arising from those minutes. We got a mover and a seconder to accept those minutes. Director Baldwin, Director Wilford, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Item A6, business arising from the minutes. I believe we've covered that and there is no business. That takes us to section B and our reports for approval. We have B1 2025-013, our Byersville Creek floodplain mapping. I'll turn this over to CAO Jeanette Levy-Smith. We'll also have our manager of plan review and permitting, Don Allen, as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And dear board, we staff are happy to bring the Byersville Creek floodplain mapping here tonight for your approval. This project has been in the months, many months in work, and it has been in partnership with the City of Peterborough and also FIMP, which is referenced in your staff cover report. In terms of things, we've received a grant to help complete this work. There is also attached to your report a public consultation. This is a bit of a new process for us and one that we're going to be looking to carry on with our additional floodplain mapping work that we have. And it highlights all of the various activities that we were undertaking in this process. And as you are aware, floodplain mapping through Ontario Reg 4124 requires that all of the maps are used. There was significant more placed into this reg in terms of how the maps are highlighted and used and available to the public. And this is a key service that conservation authorities provide, is keeping the floodplain mapping updated and current, not only for emergency purposes, but also for good land use planning. So I'm going to ask Mr. Allen to talk a little bit, to share about the highlights around the technical components of this floodplain mapping. Over to you, Mr. Allen.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair and directors, Byersville Creek was required to be restudied to address known issues with previously completed floodplain projects. These older projects used outdated engineering practices or were incomplete in their models. These projects were completed at various points over the last 30 years and would only focus sometimes in only smaller areas of the larger Byersville Creek watershed. The new study uses current advanced engineering methods, referred to as 2D hydraulic modeling, and the most recent and accurate terrain data, referred to as LiDAR, to provide comprehensive floodplain maps over the entirety of the Byersville Creek watershed. The new maps are highly accurate and provide precise flood depths at the lot level scale to better inform the planning and permit process. This means that Otonabee Conservation will have the information up front rather than requiring a landowner to complete additional studies or hire surveyors to gather elevation data. In many areas, the floodplain has not expanded relative to the older mapping, and in certain neighborhoods has even been reduced. The 2D model has led to a better understanding of flow paths that were observed in 2004 and again in 2023. The accuracy of the mapping compared to residents' observations came up multiple times during the public engagement process. There are a number of developments already ongoing in the industrial commercial part of Byersville Creek, where the new data has been able to assist in ensuring safe access and floodproofing can be provided, and where consulting teams are using the data to incorporate into their designs. This is ensuring responsible and appropriate redevelopment and/or expansion of those businesses at a reduced cost. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. So those are the highlights of this project. And again, staff are here to answer any questions that the board might have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that report. Do we have any questions from the board? Director Taylor?
Thank you, Mike. I hope I don't offend anybody on this phone call with a statement, but I've got Jeanette and Dawn and to the staff of the Conservation Authority, I really have to compliment you on the effort you put into public consultation. I think you've demonstrated what it truly can look like, and when it does, it sure makes a project go smoother. I mean, you mailed out over 1,000 letters, and I know at our township, we do what the Planning Act requires, which is, I think, notification within 100 meters, and we put it on our website, maybe slap an ad in the newspaper, and that's it. And it's never enough. It's never good enough. You guys have done a really good job here, and I really had to compliment you on that.
Thank you, Director. They definitely went above and beyond, I believe. Any other questions, comments on the report for the Byers Creek floodplain mapping? Seeing none. Our recommended motion for this report is that report 2025-013 Byersville Creek floodplain mapping be received, that the Board of Directors approve the Byersville Creek floodplain mapping for regulatory purposes, and that staff be authorized and directed to do all things necessary to give effect to these resolutions. We got a mover and a seconder, Director Huntley, Director Vasiliadis. I'll call for any other further discussion, questions. Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to section B2, 2025-014, draft records retention policy and schedule. And I will turn this over to CAO Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as part of reviewing old policies and seeing where things needed to be updated and modernized, this was one that obviously caught our attention. And so staff are looking to rescind the old policy from 2019 and bring this new policy in place. There was a lot of work and some sharing done by Conservation Ontario and other conservation authorities. This has been policy fits us here at Otonabee Conservation, and I can also say that it was legally reviewed by other conservation authorities, lawyers. So it does give me comfort in terms of knowing the path that we're going down. And it also provides a lot more direction and guidance to staff than our older policy does. We also, I'm happy to say, is staff are taking training. This is the first time as well that they're doing that. And so that's a great first step in terms of implementing these policies and then working on a file naming convention. So a longer project, as you know, in your municipalities in terms of how files are electronically and hard copied filed, but this is a good place for us to begin. And I'm looking for the board's support in this policy.
Thank you, CAO. Directors, you've seen the report in front. There's quite an extensive chart there of what files need to be saved for how long and in what state they and where they are kept. Any questions about this housekeeping report?
I do have one question, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Director.
I did read through it, but I was kind of trying to figure out, is there a differentiation between digital reports and physical reports? Like, do you have to have a physical copy of everything, or can digital copies count? And maybe I just missed it, but I couldn't really see whether there was a differentiation in there anywhere.
Yep, good question.
Legally, a digital copy is enough, and it meets the test. And we have some things that are digitalized, but the majority of our files historically are actually still paper. So we refer to them in both states. We don't differentiate between in terms of the retention of them. They're just the files.
So, follow-up question there, Chair. So something like today's agenda and report, it's digital. Would you print it and then file a hard copy, or would you retain the digital copy of it?
Mr. Chair, we would just keep the digital.
Okay.
We do, yeah.
I can assume that going forward as we digitalize more and more things and become online, that we'll see more items saved digitally and less having to physically be stored in paper, just like we would in our municipalities as we continue to go down that route. Director Baldwin, I believe I saw your hand.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, my question was along the similar lines. Is there any thought, Jeanette, to taking the existing paper copies and digitizing over time, or are you just going to continue to store those in the in file folders or wherever?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we actually have been digitizing and prioritizing which ones they are, because they're more accessible as well. We have an off-site storage where we have some of our older files as well. So it is cumbersome that way. But it's a project, and we work through that. But I can confirm that things moving forward are digitized in terms of things.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions regarding the draft records retention policy and schedule? Seeing none, the recommended motion is that report 2025-014 draft records retention policy and schedule be received, that records retention policy 036/19 be rescinded, and that records retention policy and schedule be approved, that staff be authorized and directed to do all things necessary to give effect to these resolutions. We got a mover and a seconder. Director Black, Director Boyko, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. That moves us to section C of our agenda. C1 is our 2025-015 Jackson Creek Downtown Floodplain Mapping Public Information Center. I will turn this over to our CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, this report is for information. Now that we're able to take on another consultation process with respect to the Jackson Creek. This again was in partnership with the City of Peterborough. We did not receive FIM grant money for this, but this we are now ready to go out and engage the community in this. We've had a few opportunities also. There were some suggestions around actually making some presentations, and which we will follow up with that, but we will also follow the same sort of path that we did with Byersville Creek and have an open house and also do another mail out. Staff I'm happy to answer any questions, but we're really just going out for consultation, and we'll bring this back in June.
Thank you, CEO. Vice Chair Duguay.
Thank you. Sorry, folks. I had to receive a call of a family nature, and I had to pop out for a minute. The Jackson Creek the study, Jeanette, do we have a sense of timing when the Public Information Center, is that scheduled to be in late March, or is there a date set? Because I have had some property owners express interest specifically in regarding Jackson Creek.
So through you, Mr. Chair. So what this report is saying, we're ready to go out to public consultation. The Public Information Center is one component of that. And so we have not set a date for that to be released yet, but we will be doing that quite soon.
Okay.
We also want to get the mail outs
Yes.
out as quickly as possible as well.
Having said that, whilst it's not in my political ward nor that of Councillor Baldwin or Vasiliadis, it would be an event, the Public Information Center specifically, I would be interested in attending. And if I can ask if when staff set that or think that date, if they would be kind enough to just confirm perhaps my availability. I would certainly let my other council colleagues know, but it would be a session I would wish to attend, if that's all possible, if I can make that request. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director Huntley?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Like, is it a virtual open house, or is there actually going to be a physical center set up and blackboards? Like, I'm not too clear.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we are doing a virtual open house. We had a good attendance when we did it virtually. And the Public Information Center is the physical mapping that is actually on our website. And that is what it has been called historically. And that is what people can go in and make their comments. And then we reply back to those. And those comments get captured in our actual mapping exercise as well. So when we talk about a Public Information Center, we're talking about the actual website and the actual tool on the website. We're also going to do an open house, and I'm also reached out to a few opportunities to do some presentations. Vice Chair Duguay had suggested the DBIA, which I did already reach out to. And so we're going to do that in addition to also the letters as well.
Thank you, Director. Was there any other comments or questions?
Just briefly to follow up with Jeanette's comment, if I might, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
The DBIA, for example, had their breakfast meeting today at 8 o'clock, and it was well attended. So assuming that's the forum at which Orca could present to the membership, quite often their board are there, I think it would be a very productive session. Having 30 business owners or property owners attend an event, I think would be very productive for our time spent as in one of the presentations. So Jeanette, thank you, and I look forward to that presentation.
Thank you. Any other further comments or questions on this report? Seeing none, the recommended motions be it resolved that report number 2025-015, Jackson Creek Downtown Floodplain Mapping, be received for information. Can we get a mover and a seconder? Vice Chair Duguay, Director Huntley, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moves us on to agenda item C2, our 2025-016 CAO monthly activity report. And I will turn this over to our CAO. You're still muted there.
Apologies on that. It is springtime, so we are much busier here at Tonabee Conservation. And I do want to highlight one correction that I found in my report, and that is under the audit. So that is currently ongoing right now, and our manager of corporate services has been quite busy working with our auditors. The audit itself is scheduled to come to the April 17th meeting of the board. So we will first have a finance committee meeting on Tuesday, April the 1st at 1 o'clock. That will be virtual. And the Finance Committee will see the draft statements, and the auditor obviously will be there. And then we will have our in-person meeting on April the 17th at Riverview Zoo at the Rotary Room, and the auditor will also be joining the board in person to present the statements there. It's been also a great first week. I included some stats of our camping in terms of things. So you can see again, just in a couple of days there, how popular the campsites are. And also I will, because we are live streaming, also let our audience know that Premier Doug Ford, through his announcing his cabinet, we conservation authorities now are moved under the umbrella of the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and have a new minister there. So that transition at a provincial level will happen, and we will hear more about how that works and our contacts there. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jeanette. Director Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeanette, I guess maybe I didn't interpret that chart correctly. I thought that it was telling us the number of bookings that were received when the campsites were open. Are you suggesting there was people actually camping during those weeks?
No, Mr. Chair, my apologies. It's number of bookings.
Okay.
It's
right.
the number. So, but what this demonstrates is that even in the first week when things went live to book, we received a significant number in just that first week. So
Okay.
people were waiting for Let's Camp to open up and those sites to open up, and they were right on it at all three of those campgrounds.
I thank you. I misunderstood what you just said a minute ago, because the weather the first week of March was nothing I'd be camping in.
No,
okay,
and the campsites aren't ready yet.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions or comments on the CAO report? Seeing none, the recommended motion that board report number 2025-016 CAO Secretary Treasurer Monthly Activity Report be received for information. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Director Baldwin? Director Black, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. That moves us to item C3 on our agenda, our 2025-03 media highlights. Any questions, comments on any of those highlights in that report? It's always good to see this report. It's thorough, and we really get a highlight of where we're being seen as an organization out there in the community. So it's good to see. I will, Director Boyko, do you have a question, or would you like to move the report?
I'll move the report, but I just wanted to say thank you for a great laugh when I read this and I saw that picture of the beaver with a canoe paddle and a Canadian flag flying the Canada Goose. Thank you for that. Just what I needed at exactly the right moment. So thank you. That's my only comment.
Perfect. Thank you, Director. And we have a mover. We have a seconder to receive the media report. Vice Chair Duguay, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. We have no correspondence to report to this evening. Do we have anything for open forum? Vice Chair Duguay?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just to acknowledge Orca's participation at the recent, I think it was more of a seasonal job fair led, I believe, by the county, of which the city, Orca, there were a couple of townships. I believe, Joe, I believe OSM may have been there. I could be mistaken, but it was well attended. And I had a chance to talk to Shelby. So I thought it was a great event, and certainly something I would endorse occurring on a regular basis. It was interesting though to see who the majority of young persons were inquiring about jobs. And I would describe many of them as being newer to Canada, hungry for work, ambitious and energetic. But I was happy to attend, and I acknowledge Orca's support and participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Seeing no other open forum, that will move us into item F, closed session, where we have 2 items to go over, and I will ask that we take a move to go into. That's Director Wilford, Director Vasiliadis, all those in favor to go into closed. That is carried. I will give staff a moment to get everything